There are more people in Maine that could have been picked any person randomly.
Let me just ask you the question, though. Just what Tara was saying. If you agree with Donald Trump's assessment of Graham Platner, you probably ought to agree with Donald Trump's assessment.
I didn't say I agree with Donald Trump's assessment.
An actual.
Where was that?
So I'm just saying. Listen, it's. I'm just asking. We asked Tara. We asked Noah. They were both able to say neither of these guys, right?
Miss me with all of that virtue signaling. Anyone who voted for Donald Trump, anyone who has sat up here in TV studios and defended Donald Trump, the guy, the grab him by the pussy guy, the hit him in that, knock the hell out of him guy, the fire that son of a bitch guy, the suckers and losers guy.
Tara Sotomayor, who is a Republican or more of an old school Republican, absolutely torches this Republican on the CNN panel for their grand hypocrisy when it comes to Graham Platner versus Donald Trump. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts towards there. Let's get into it.
Tonight, the gloves are off, and Donald Trump is unleashing on Graham Platner after Platner secured the Democratic nomination for the Senate in Maine. Listen to this.
I watched that thug that's up in Maine. He's a thug. And they're trying to make excuses for him. I mean, he's worse than any human being that's ever run for office, probably. He's a cheap, no good person. He's just an outright pig. He's like a pig. I watched him, and I come up with good names for people. I don't want to stick him with that one, although I think pigs would be very upset about it.
If Republicans want to maintain control of the Senate, they'll more than likely need to rely on incumbent Senator Susan Collins to defeat Platner in November. But in light of his rocky relationship with Collins, Trump's endorsement today was hardly enthusiastic, to put it lightly.
She's not my best friend at all. These guys are. I get along well, but I have some. But she's a sane person. And she's a person that never missed a vote in many years. I mean, she's like had 10,000 votes. She had 10,000 votes. She never missed a vote. Unfortunately, because sometimes she voted against me. Look, she's a sane woman, and she's a respected person.
Donald Trump calling Graham Platner the worst person, I guess, to run for office, attacking him for the scandals that he has endured over the last couple of weeks. What do you make of it, Anna?
Pot, meat, kettle. I mean, look, I think there's a lot of people in this country who think Donald Trump is the worst person that's ever been elected president. Maybe not run for office, but certainly been elected president. Donald Trump, of course, has his own barrage of problems with toxicity, sexual harassment, accusations of rape, so many different things. Sexual assault that we all heard him boast about. Look, this Graham Platner thing is very difficult. And I think that the more we talk about it, the better it is, because the voters of Maine, who are the ones that are going to decide, are going to make an educated decision of just what matters to them and what doesn't. You can't say that they're going into the ballot box without knowing who they are voting for. In the same way that the Christian evangelicals who held their nose and voted for Trump after the Access Hollywood tapes knew who they were voting for. So, I think it's the utmost irony, these kind of criticisms coming from Donald Trump. There's a lot of other people who have the moral authority to do it, not Donald J. Trump.
Feels like something he might want to sit out, this particular conversation.
Yeah, listen, the president has ethical flaws, we'll say, and a checkered moral past, but I don't think this is difficult at all, just judging by the Democratic Party standards. The Democratic Party standard was that this is a moral abomination, and you have a moral responsibility to oppose it. When the president was on the ballot, back in 2018, we were confronted with the concept of toxic masculinity, which was the notion being that men raised in the poisonous milieu of the American environment come up and fetishize violence have physical and emotional abuse to the women in their lives, are boorish, are crude, and that's the sort of thing that we should discourage and not
Donald
review.
Trump's
On a
Truth
very
social
basic
feed about a
level.
half an hour
And
ago.
Tara, I
Like,
just
are you
described
kidding?
Graham Platner
On
in
a very
Maine. So
basic
to apply your
level, toxic
standards.
I am
masculinity
not
is
defending
not grabbing
Graham
women by
Platner.
their
No.
clothes.
You are
Everyone
defending
is.
Graham
No,
Platner.
time out. I am not defending Graham Platner.
So should Mainers go to the
I'd like
polls
to
and
finish
vote for
my
Susan
sentence.
Collins? Sure.
So I am not defending Graham Platner. I am actually, someone who is intellectually consistent about the fact that character matters. I think that this is a horrible choice. I think Democrats made a terrible mistake by putting this guy forward. They knew that he had problems back in the fall, and I find it hard to believe that there's no one else in Maine besides the 79-year-old governor or this guy. But it's up to the people of Maine. However, this is the part that I think is just indefensible. Donald Trump just described himself. He always projects. And then all of the Republicans who are trying to now project onto Democrats that, oh, well, Democrats, you guys need to take a stand because you criticize Trump. No, miss me with all of that virtue signaling. Anyone who voted for Donald Trump, anyone who has sat up here in TV studios and defended Donald Trump, the grab him by the pussy guy, the hit him in that, knock the hell out of him guy, the fire that son of a bitch guy, the suckers and losers guy, the guy that posts violent
I know his
memes on
greatest
his
hits,
Truth Social.
but Tara, you're
You
filibustering.
people all
Should
defend
Mainers
that.
vote
So
against
that-
Graham Platner?
I
Should they
think
vote for
Mainers
Susan
should
Collins?
Mainers are going to have to deal with that.
You want to answer the
that's not
question?
what
I said they should sacrifice the presidency
that's
when
up to
Donald
them.
Trump was on the ballot. I think
for me,
voters should
I couldn't vote
sacrifice the
for him.
Senate.
I could not vote for him, but that's up to the people of Maine to decide.
Just so that we understand where everybody stands, Noah, you voted against. You did
I've
not
never
vote
voted for Donald
Never voted for Donald Trump. You didn't support his nomination. What about you, Horace?
I supported Donald Trump because I support these policies. But let's be
character
clear.
doesn't matter.
Let's be clear. I didn't interrupt you.
that's
Let's
the
be
point
clear.
that Tara's
That's my
making.
point.
Let's be clear.
But
This
hold on.
anti-Semitic dirtbag.
Hold on a second.
There are more people in Maine that could have been picked any person randomly
Let me just ask you the
than this
question,
guy.
though. It just what Tara was saying. If you agree with Donald Trump's assessment of Graham Platner, you probably ought to agree
I
with
didn't say
Donald
I agree
Trump's
with Donald
assessment
Trump's
of
assessment.
Donald Trump.
I didn't say I agree
So-
with Donald Trump's assessment. I'm saying this anti-Semitic reprobate should never have been allowed to run. Any decent, credible party
why is Donald
would
Trump
have
allowed to
said,
run?
Why would
no.
why would
Any
you-
decent,
hold on a
credible
second.
party would have said,
But hold
no,
on,
it's
hold on.
not your time. We're going to get
Why
someone else.
are
did
you
you say
so
that about Trump?
confident in saying that about Graham Platner,
Right.
but you cannot say
The
that about
star of the Nazi that he had
Listen to
on his
her
body.
question. Why did you
That's
say
why
it
I'm
about
so
Trump?
confident.
Yeah.
What her
Okay.
question is, why are you so
we know
confident about Graham Platner
that
and not
Donald
Trump?
Trump
Is
has
not
his-
anti-Semitic.
has his
I know that.
own long history.
Yeah, but he's a dirtbag in many other ways.
He in 2016, he hesitated several times to disavow David Duke, and then eventually did it under duress. He never apologized for falsely claiming the Central Park Five were guilty and calling for the death penalty. He was accused of bias in his real estate practice.
In the
He
casinos.
dined with white nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes at his private club
Who is
in
anti-Semitic?
Florida.
I mean, yeah, it's,
With
I
an
think that-
actual.
I'm
Where
happy
was
to
that?
concede
Where
all
the
of
hell was
this.
the smoke for
we
that?
can unpack
So,
the litany of
so I'm
charges
just
against-
saying, listen, it's, I'm just asking, we asked Tara, we asked Noah, they were both able to say neither of these guys, right? Are you willing to say that?
I'm willing to say that this scumbag should not be
So the
on
answer
the
is
ballot.
no. Go ahead.
But
This
it doesn't apply to
anti-Semitic
Trump.
problem that his party is associated with
I hear
needs
you.
to come
I hear you.
to
Look,
an end.
But what about
Okay, let me
Donald
let
Trump
Cooper
hanging
have
out
a
with
word. Go
Nazis?
ahead.
I think it's
don't
worth.
get it.
I think it's worth talking about what the Democratic leadership has done, both before he won the nomination and after. And the reality is that lots and lots of people have been willing to put party over principle here, and we saw Republicans do something similar. And to the extent there's hypocrisy, that is the hypocrisy here. And is it really the case that Susan Collins, for all of one's political disagreements with her, like that she is obviously a worse human, a less kind of credible, honest, earnest, sincere person, less trustworthy than the person who seems to be running for office now?
I don't think they're
They
comparing.
are.
They're not comparing.
not-
No, I don't think it's
Okay,
a
so what is
comparison.
it?
Susan Collins as a vessel of and complicit with Donald Trump. Not who's better. Who's
But
a better
that's politics
person?
and principle.
Yeah, who's a better person, Susan Collins or Graham Platner? I would say most rational human beings would clearly say Susan Collins. But I don't think that's the decision that Mainers are making. The people who say
this
Graham Platner is reprehensible, but we're going to vote for him because we need to get his soul in the Senate.
I think I would have a difficult time voting for someone
it's a
who
difficult
I
decision,
wouldn't feel comfortable
All
saying,
this episode
leaving
tells
children
us
with or giving the keys to.
Is that Democrats are as capable of rationalizations in the pursuit of political power as Republicans are.
I think
They're
that's what it
human.
is. No, it's not a matter of making it right.
No,
But I do think exposing that hypocrisy is appropriate.
You're right about that. One thing I will maybe to some extent give to both sides is that politics and policy are not just about the games that we play rhetorically. It's also about the impact that they have on people's lives. Republicans believe that their policies make their lives better. Democrats believe their policies make their lives better. That's what allows people to justify moral inadequacies. It's because they believe the policy is worth it, that the outcome is worth it, that Susan Collins, voting a certain way on a HHS nomination has real impacts on real people.
But then you don't have an inviolable...
It's not just rhetoric. It's life and death.
But you don't have an inviolable moral frame there. You have a flexible moral frame.
In my case,
listen. I agree with you.
That's
this whole thing sings of hypocrisy.
Abby, in my case,
all around, but that's the why of it. That's why we're all comfortable saying,
Abby, in my
I'm
case,
fine with it in this case, but not in that case.
Abby, in my case, I represent one of the largest conservative African American groups in the country, and we believe that the kinds of policies that we're seeing under this administration is specifically helping Black Americans. I was so convinced of it, I actually wrote a book about it.
Well, look, I will just note that the Black unemployment rate skyrocketed. Basically, as soon as Donald Trump got into office,
and they decimated
you would
DEI
have
programs.
to address that as well.
Black generals have been disappeared from DOD.
And Black
People
women
need to
reporting
Black
on what it was
farmers
like
are
inside the
declaring
Situation Room.
I don't know how many times I've said this on this channel. I don't know how many times I've said it. But if people that are more to the left or oppose this government, this administration, if they don't take a look at this situation and see why we are here, I genuinely don't know how to help these people. I genuinely don't, because the reality when I look at this situation, why are we here? We are here because the bar is so low, and it was set that way from Republicans. They gave a pass to Donald Trump on absolutely anything that guy does. Anything he does, nothing is bad enough for Republicans to turn around and say, we can't even support you. January 6th wasn't even bad enough. Do you know why? Because a lot of them tried to speak out, tried to say something, but when they saw that Donald Trump's base, MAGA, was still with him and still had his back, guess what? They all assessed the situation, and because they all want to make sure that they maintain the power that it is that they have, they shut their mouth and they fell back in line. This is the state of where things are at right now. Now, like I said, in my opinion, is Graham Platner a moral person that I'd like to get behind? No, he wouldn't be. I'm not going to lie, he wouldn't. But the reality is this. The fact that it is that Horace Cooper repeatedly refused to answer the question because of the fact that everything he was complaining about Graham Platner about, it's the exact same thing with Donald Trump. That is exactly why we're here. Because we're dealing with people who aren't dealing in good faith. They deal in bad faith. They do. And that's the reason as to why he refused to answer the question. Because if he did answer the question, guess what? His morality, his integrity would completely be eradicated, because it just doesn't make sense what he was saying. He was angry because of the fact that he was saying Graham Platner is anti-Semitic. Okay, if that's his stance, cool. But Donald Trump has a long history of racism. Why are you not just as outraged as that? You're not. The reality is this. If you remember that clip between, I believe it was John McCain and a Republican voter, and the voter referred to Barack Obama as a Muslim, as an Arab. That's what she referred to him as. And what did you see John McCain do? He stopped and he said, listen, I disagree with Barack Obama a lot politically, but he's a good man. He's a good person. That is where politics was at one point. If you now take that situation, all you have to do is go to Donald Trump's Truth Social feed and scroll down. That will perfectly exemplify where politics is at right now. Now, am I saying that it justifies what Democrats are doing with Graham Platner? No, I'm not saying that. But this idea and this notion that when Republicans go low, Democrats must go high, it's BS. And it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. The only way you can continue to believe that that mindset, that way of doing things matters and works is if you want to continue to lose. I'm sorry. I really, really am sorry. And it's actually sad to me that politics is where it's at right now. It's the exact same thing right here in the United Kingdom. It's in the gutter. But the problem is this. The right, they've dragged us into the gutter. And you literally have a decision to make. Are you going to fight fire with fire? Or are you going to continue to take the moral high ground and continue to lose? We literally saw in 2024, we had, I keep saying we like I'm an American, but you know, like I said, Americans' policies affect the entire world. So there was a crossroads. There was a crossroads and people had a choice. And 77 or so million Americans voted with Donald Trump and all of his scandals. Now, you have to understand, when it comes to Donald Trump, listen, this is someone who was found liable by a New York jury for sexual abuse, making attacks on another candidate's treatment of women deeply hypocritical. He can't say anything about Graham Platner. He can't. But it will continue to. Honestly. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this in the comment section below. Do the usual stuff. Like, subscribe, turn on the bell. See you guys in the next one.